well known as Alan Dershowitz, but he is the editor-in-chief of the Post-Eagle, a newspaper that is dedicated to bringing news of Polish Americans to Polish Americans. And as a result of the remarks that Alan Dershowitz made about Mr. Grabowski, I received this letter. Heard your talk show yesterday, Thursday, August 29th at 5:57 p.m. with the circumcised Nazi Dershowitz when he attacked me viciously and deliberately lied about me. I hate the Pope. I hate Catholics. I've never been on any talk show other than yours. Once again, this buffoon put his foot in his mouth. He has that disease of all buffoons, constipation of the brain, diarrhea of the mouth, end of quote. He refused my challenge naturally. I'd make mincemeat of him. Since he maligned me on your show, I demand equal time to rebut his lies. You owe me this. Awaiting the day to appear on your show so I can let my readers know when to tune in. Signed, Chester. Well, I don't owe Chester anything, but I did feel that it would be perhaps interesting to have him respond. But what is he responding to? Here is the actual reprise, the actual tape from the 29th, from August 29th broadcast. Here it is. The game hasn't surfaced here yet, has it?
Well, I've already heard that there are ads. For example, there's a newspaper in Clifton, New Jersey called the Post-Eagle, which constantly writes pro-Nazi editorials, Nazi ads. A guy named Chester Grabowski, who's just an old-fashioned Nazi.
He has attacked me many times.
And, in fact, he has worse than that. He has praised you. I read his newspaper. He praised you.
Is he now praising me?
Because you're the only talk show host in America, he said, who has ever allowed him on his show. And he praises you, and you're probably the only, and I wouldn't take that as high flattery, but I would defend his right to speak, but I wouldn't put him on the show.
Would you appear with him if I were, would you appear with him?
I wouldn't dignify that
you wouldn't appear with him.
Thing. I mean, I would defend his right to speak, but I have no interest in sitting in the same show with him, and he has no ideas. I mean, he hates the Pope. No. He hates the Catholic Church because he thinks they're now toadying up to the Jews.
All right, that's it. So here you are. You're sitting in the very same seat Mr. Dershowitz occupied last Thursday. How do you feel about it?
Not too well if I'm sitting in the same seat.
Well, that's what you wanted, though. You did contact me, and I thought that it would make for proper broadcasting to have you in. And here you are. You seemed more shocked than anything else that he made these charges against you.
Well, naturally, Mr. Grant, when he says that I hate the Pope, this is ridiculous. I know the Pope personally. I've been with him in 67. I support him. I promote him. When he says I'm anti-Catholic, I push the Catholic cause. I push the Christian cause. I'm a Catholic myself. I mean, this man shoots from the hip. He has, as I say, the diarrhea of the mouth, constipation of the brain, and this man has finally overstepped himself because with his book, The Chutzpah, all through the country, as he goes around, he never mentioned me. Although on page 160, 61, and 62, he attacks me viciously, following by Buchanan, Pat Buchanan. Pat and I are in the same boat with Mr. Dershowitz. And now he let himself out. He came on your show, and he attacks me with this stupidity. And then he says, you're the only man that I was whose show I was on. Again, I've been on a Buddy Canchi show up in Providence, Rhode Island. I've been with shows out, Jack Walters in Reading, Pennsylvania. I've been on shows in Pine Island, Florida.
All the biggies, all the biggies.
I have my television shows, too. So this is why, and if I allow this to get by, people really think that I'm anti-Pope, and I'm not anti-Pope, and I'm not anti-Catholic. And I would say this to the listeners of your show, Mr. Grant. Although I don't want to push his book, and I tell the people, beg, borrow, or steal it, but read it, but don't buy it. Don't add to his coffers, because if you go into chapter 130, and you go on for about 30 pages, this is the most vicious, vitriolic, anti-Polish, anti-Catholic, anti-Gentile chapter that I've ever ran across. I've got the book in front of me, and I have the various lines marked out. In fact, in one of the pages, he says that what the Nazis did not accomplish, the Polish people accomplished. In other words, we were collaborators, rather, the people of Poland. And also, he went on to say that Poland is the most vicious anti-Semitic country. He attacked our Colby, the man who died for another man. He attacked the Glemp, which he's going after when Glemp comes over here. He went after just about every person in Poland and Poland in general. He smears the whole Polish nation with the brush of anti-Semitism. I don't buy this anti-Semitism. He can't scare me with anti-Semitism because I'm pro-Semitism. I'm pro the poor Palestinian, the poor Arab, and the poor, decent Jew who is a Semite. You know, what he's done with this book, Chutzpah, is pushed back the relationship between the Polish and the Christians with the Jewish people. Because even his own Jewish Congress, you notice the clippings, I have a mess of clippings here, where the people attack him and say he's ridiculous. But he's ridiculous anyway. I wish he would come aboard, but he won't come to me because I have the facts and the proof.
I did talk to him on the air. I asked him that question, and I did talk to him afterwards as we were gathering our things and proceeding out of the studio. And I did ask him again if he would appear with you, and he said, no way. Has he ever met you?
No, never.
I see. And I see a photo while I was talking, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Grabowski handed me a photo taken with His Holiness Pope John Paul II, and the photo was taken by l'Osservatore Romano, Città del Vaticano, which of course is Vatican City. So indeed, you did have an audience with the Pope. You seem to be showing him a copy of your newspaper.
That's right. I traveled with him 3 years ago in Poland as well.
All right. Mr. Grabowski, let's quote from Chutzpah, the page 146, from Alan Dershowitz. When the war finally ended and the Germans retreated in 1945, the few Jewish survivors emerged from their hiding places in the sewers, the forests, and the makeshift bunkers. Few families remained intact, but some remnants were determined to try to rebuild Polish Jewry. They came back to their homes only to find them looted and occupied by locals, some of whom were angry at their return and disappointed that the Nazis had not completed their work. You object to that statement?
Well, that's not that particular statement. There are other statements on that page where he specifically says that what the Nazis did not finish, the Polish people, Poland, completed. That means trying to get rid of all the Jews in Poland. And this, of course, is a lie. The man is creating animosity between the Polish people, the Polonians like myself, and the Jewish people. He also attacks the German people. He says we should never have given the German people any help or any assistance for what they've done. We shall never forget, we shall never forgive, he says. He attacks Sister Teresa. He attacks Kolbe. He attacks Wyszynski. He attacks everything that's Polish. The man is a very sick man. I feel sorry for him.
Well, the fact remains, however, though, that he is not, maybe he's more outspoken and more vitriolic, but the fact remains that there are many, many Jews who do have this feeling that the Polish anti-Semitism was more pernicious than any other. How do you respond to that?
There was never any anti-Semitism Polish, a la Polish. There were very, very many instances where, of course, you know, the Jews lived over 1,000 years in Poland, and they had the freedom of anything that they want to do. They even coined their own coins in Poland. But the animosity there was between the people who had doings with them because they tried to, they're obnoxious in many instances, even like here. They try to take over, they try to do certain things, and the Polish people resented it. But Polish people are not anti-Semitic. In fact, in Katyn, where they found that 4,500 or so, amongst them, there were Polish generals, Polish rabbis who first were Polish citizens. Then they became Jewish, like I'm an American and you're an American. But my relationship is I'm of Polish descent. But if they give any statistics in the paper about anyone dying, they're going to put down Grabowski, Polish, Grabowski, an American soldier. And it's the same thing there. So, and not only that, but remember, communism was founded in Russia, Poland. And many, many of the Jews were communists, and they tried to indoctrinate and change the religion of the Polish people, and that's why the Polish people object. And that's why there was this animosity. But there was never any so-called anti-Semitism, which I don't believe in that word anyway, but there never was.
We'll take a brief time out, then we'll go public and hear what's on your mind. I think you've had a chance to get an overview of the dichotomy between Chester Grabowski and Alan Dershowitz. And, of course, you don't have to limit your comments to just that. If you want to make contact, if you want to join in, we'd like to say join in the fun, but I don't know how much fun it will be. 212-563-WABC, unless you're calling from New Jersey, which happens to be the home state of Mr. Grabowski. It's 201-489-WABC, 201-489-WABC. The time, by the way, is 21 minutes past 4 o'clock. The telephones from Perth Amboy. Here's Dan calling in. Hello, Dan.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
What's on your mind, Dan?
I'm not sure I've exactly ever heard of your guest or his newspaper, but I was wondering if he could comment on the anti-Catholic attitude of Dershowitz in his treatment of the nuns in Poland, and what Bishop Joseph Glemp said about him, and also Dershowitz's threat to have Glemp arrested if he ever stepped foot in this country.
By the way, before Chester Grabowski answers that question, Joseph Glemp has announced that he will be meeting with Jewish leaders when he arrives in this country, and I believe that he is meeting with them in order to, in order to try to salve a lot of wounds, Chester. Right?
Yeah, and it's a shame that there are going to be demonstrations against Glemp. I can see that. Knowing Rabbi Weiss and knowing Dershowitz and knowing...
You mean Avi Weiss of
yes, the one that I was on
Riverdale.
here with you,
Yeah,
right.
okay.
And Mordecai Levy and a few of the other nitwits, they're going to do something, and they're going to hurt the Pulaski parade. I even wrote to the cardinal, I said, don't come, but he's coming. But as far as this gentleman goes, I was with Sister Teresa 2 years ago, and the convent is not on Auschwitz. It's not on Oświęcim, on the camp.
Right.
It's off the camp. And Sister was very upset, and she said, as far as they're concerned, they're going to stay there, no matter who tells them what, because this is Polish soil. These were Polish people who died as well as Jewish people. In fact, most of the Jewish people were Polish citizens.
Right.
Because they were born in Poland. And if you're born in a country, this is what you are first. And he calls the nun, I have a clipping here which I have with me. He calls Sister Teresa as a bigot, and he hopes that her soul will change as far as the Jewish people go.
Well, Dershowitz is such a hypocrite. He doesn't respect Glemp's right to freedom of speech within his own territory, even. I mean, as I understand it, Bishop Glemp made the statement in a church.
That's right.
And in Poland, and
well, he did send out a letter, but that's neither here nor there, because the story that I have is that Cardinal Glemp will meet with various Jewish leaders, and that Cardinal Glemp has ameliorated his statement, has in effect apologized, even though some people like Chester Grabowski feel no apology is necessary.
That's true.
right.
As far as your remark, though, about the nuns said they will never get off that territory, I was in Poland. You don't know, maybe you don't know this.
I
was
remember.
in Poland last year.
I follow you very religiously.
And I did go to Auschwitz, and I
you
did
saw
talk
Sister
to a gentleman, we called him Teddy, a Polish gentleman who told us that they are going to vacate that territory in 1992, the nuns are.
I talked to Sister Teresa, and I talked to the horse's mouth, so to speak. And they're very upset. And
They're going to stay?
if they said that they're going to stay unless they are bodily carried off.
Oh.
Right. And as this gentleman said, this man is a hypocrite because he says he's going to guarantee my civil rights First of all, he says that Grabowski has a right to say what he wants, and he's going to defend it. And he's the man that attacked my paper, the Post-Eagle, and tried to destroy it because I happen to write editorials against certain Zionist Jews and because I defend the Polish people. So he's taking my First Amendment rights away from me, and he's telling everybody he believes in the First Amendment rights. This man is sick, and as I say, he is, what's the sense?
He has also written to advertisers who buy advertising in your publication. Is that right?
He's written to every one of my advertisers in my Christmas issue, and he called them. He called my attorneys. He called Congressman Frank Arini, who I lost respect for, and Bob Januszewski, the county executive, whom I lost respect for, because they backed off because of this man. They were frightened by this man. And there's a few others, Matt Ronaldo, and a few of these so-called guys that are, they all should be thrown out of Congress this year, and I'm going to help whatever I can.
All right. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your call. We're going to continue with Chester Grabowski, who does not mince words, as you can see, in just a couple of minutes. But right now, let's check in with Joan OBC, Chester Grabowski, who is the editor, the publisher of the Post-Eagle, whose slogan is Polonia's leading independent American Polish weekly newspaper. And Nick is checking in right now from Bergenfield. Hello, Nick.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Chester Grabowski.
Yes, sir.
I tend to admire and respect Alan Dershowitz, although I must confess that I am very disappointed that he did not consent to confront you personally on the air. I suspect, I'd be willing to lay odds, that in a direct debate with you that was fair, he would utterly demolish your position based on the superior intellect and the facts. But, again, I haven't read your newspaper, so let me just ask you a question that I think would help me to determine where you stand, who you are. And that question is this. Would you be willing to publicly repudiate David Duke, his past in general, and his present positions as they stand now?
What have I got to do with Duke? I don't know Duke.
Well, he's a public figure, and everybody...
No. You're off base asking somebody who's not even associated with the guy to repudiate him.
Uh-huh. Well, that tells me a lot right there.
And if you're truly the observant person you claim to be, the person who's able to discriminate and judge nuances, Nick, you would notice that even Duke himself has repudiated his past. But if you were to take his positions as they are today, in most cases, and not know who enunciated those positions, you would find a lot of people would agree with those positions. Maybe even you.
Well, I wish you would repudiate even his present position. I think David Duke appeals
It's
to
not,
the
you know, this is a red herring issue. David Duke is not the issue. Alan Dershowitz and Chester Grabowski and their dichotomy, that is the issue.
All right, let me ask you this question, Mr. Grabowski, then, to see if I can, where you stand. If you, I don't know if you have any daughters or not.
I have 2 daughters and 3 sons.
Okay. If your daughter were to come up to you and say to you, Dad, I've met a wonderful man that I'd like to marry. He happens to be...
this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, let him continue. I'll answer him.
And the man happens to be both Jewish and black. Would you bless the marriage?
Let me tell you this. I am an American first of Polish heritage. I cannot tell my children what to do. If my daughter wants to marry a Jewish fellow, it's entirely up to her.
Who happens to be black.
What is your background, Nick? Let's find out a little something about you and what makes you so weird.
No, I'm an Italian Catholic.
Really?
Yes.
But you also have a serious problem, Nick. You really do. You have a serious problem. And that problem is you want so desperately to be considered an intellect, you think the only way to be considered an intellect is to become a bleeding heart liberal who is not able to discern the difference in nuances between points of view.
Well, I think...
In other words, what you are is a Gavone at heart who would like to graduate out of the Gavone category.
Well, I hope that somebody who knows Dershowitz is listening and that they can prod him to debate Mr. Grabowski. I think that would be the right thing for him to do since he did publicly criticize him.
Nick,
so in that respect, I agree with you.
Nick, don't demean my intelligence. I'm a lawyer by profession, too. I graduated Seton Hall. I have a doctor's jurisprudence.
A lot of people are attorneys who are hacks.
But I'm not practicing, okay?
Well, Dershowitz is first-class attorney, and I think in any court of law he'd probably beat your pants off.
That's your opinion.
Anyway,
Well, the guy is obviously prejudiced against you and prejudiced in favor of Alan Dershowitz because 3 times now he has said how he would beat you in a debate. 3 times he has said that. So you're prejudiced, Dick.
You're right. I from what I hear of Mr. Grabowski, and since he refuses to be very specific about his positions on race and religion, I tend to suspect that what Dershowitz is saying may in fact be true. That the man is in fact a bigot, if not a gross one.
Is it possible? Is it possible that Dershowitz, although he probably doesn't think so, is it possible that Dershowitz is also a bigot? Is it possible that Dershowitz is guilty of being bigoted against Poles?
It's possible, and that's why I'd like to see them debate. I really
okay, thank you.
That.
The guy's a broken record. Steve, you're on WABC. Hello.
Yeah, Bob. Good afternoon. First, I want to answer the last caller's thing about making a debate between Alan Dershowitz and whatever his name is.
His name is Chester Grabowski.
Whatever, Chester. First of all, Alan Dershowitz should not and does not have to debate with a Nazi. That's number one.
I'm not a Nazi.
Okay, your views are just as good as a Nazi. And Bob, let me ask you a question. You came back from a vacation. I don't know what happened to you. You take this guy on the air. Who's going to be next? The KKK will be next on the air?
Very possible we may have a KKK person on. Very possible. We have people representing all kinds of points of view, and we do deal in controversy. So it's very possible, Steve.
Okay, Mr. Chester.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask you a question?
Surely.
You said that Mr. Dershowitz started animosity between the Poles and the Jews.
That's true.
Yes. What happened 50 years ago before Mr. Dershowitz was able to speak? Who started animosity then?
50 years ago, 52 years ago, Poland was invaded by the Nazis, and the Polish people saved hundreds of thousands of Polish Jews.
Hundreds of thousands?
And Poland was the first...
6 million. They saved hundreds of thousands, but killed 6 million.
There were no 6 million. 6 million were 6 million Polish citizens. Let's get the facts straight.
By the way, Steve.
Yes.
You asked that pejorative question, and you asked it in a very derogatory manner. Do you realize that Chester Grabowski wouldn't be here today if Alan Dershowitz weren't here on the 29th of August? You realize that?
Yes, I realize that.
Ah, boy. Thank you. I knew that Steve was basically fair at heart. Mel, you're on WABC. Hello.
Mr. Grabowski.
Yes, sir.
The facts just bear out what Alan Dershowitz stated. In fact, he understated just about everything. The first 7 hours, the whole war was over for Poland.
That's wrong.
Well, let me continue.
Go ahead.
And the Warsaw Ghetto, the Jews lasted almost 3.5 months without any aid whatsoever.
That's a lie.
From the Poles. Maybe they gave them a few guns.
That's a lie.
And the Poles made the best concentration guards money could buy.
That's a lie. It was a Judenreich.
And if the Prince of Darkness did any more than he did, there probably wouldn't be one Jew left in Europe.
There's over 100,000 Polish Jews in Poland today, despite the fact that they try to claim otherwise.
Jews returned after the war to reclaim their home, and they were rejected and murdered, and their homes and property stolen, and they had to leave.
Chester, according to the UJA, there are not more than 5,000 Jews in all of Poland.
That's not true, Bob.
He misstates facts all over the place.
I don't
Why would the UJA come up with false information on that?
I don't know. How come they I guess they want to get some people to feel and bleed hearts for them.
But you can prove that there are 100,000
Absolutely.
Jews?
It's been written not only by me, by Jewish writers.
By Jewish writers?
Absolutely.
All
Yad Vashem, the Krakowski, who's in charge of Yad Vashem. S-K-Y, not S-K-I, sir. He's Jewish. And he even goes in and tells the people about that.
Huh?
So I don't pull things out of the air. I have a mess of material in front of me here, and I can quote verbatim and even quote.
Okay. Mel, appreciate your call. Thank you. Let's try Harry. Hello, Harry. You're on WABC.
Yes, Mr. Grabowski.
Yes, sir.
You are a filthy, low-life Nazi scum liar, and if you were black, your name would be Leonard Jeffries.
No, my name would be Dershowitz, because Dershowitz is the white Jeffries.
I come from a long line of Polish Jews, and I know for a fact that Jews for centuries were never allowed to take part in public life in Poland.
Oh, you're such a liar. Read the history.
Sir.
Polish Jews lived the greatest...
My parents and their ancestors were never allowed to go to the regular schools, to take part in political life, to be officers in the army. They were like the blacks under the Jim Crow laws around the turn of the century in this country.
First of all,
You are a filthy liar.
your parents were not in Poland because Poland wasn't on the map at that time, for your
were in
information.
Auschwitz.
They were either Russia, Prussia,
They were
or
in
Austria.
Auschwitz. They were outside of Krakow, and they were taken to Auschwitz,
But
and
yes-
they survived. And when they tried to go back to their homes, they were not allowed to because the Polish people would have killed them if they had.
That's not true.
You are a scum and a liar, and I
Well-
will tell you something else.
Yeah.
The next time you come for us, it will not be so easy.
Oh, I know you're threatening me again,
You don't
huh?
have to threat you.
Oh, you people, all you do, don't scare me.
We're not
Because
scared of
I'll
you. That's
take
the
you with
problem.
me if
We're
anything
not scared
happens.
of you anymore. That's the problem. We'll stand up to you face to face this time and stick it.
Let Dershowitz
to your
stand
face.
face to face with
You
me. I
lying little
demand that he
Nazi
stands face to
scum.
face with me.
Yeah, I could stay face to face to you. Spit in your face.
I'll go.
All right, on WABC, the antipathy, the hostility, the hatred that this man, Harry of Queens, has for you came right through the telephone.
Yeah, I felt it right through my bones.
You don't seem to be upset about that at all.
I'm not, because I'm used to this nonsense and to these lies and distortions, and I will not be compromised with the truth. And the truth, what he says, is not the truth as far as Poland. Polish Jews lived the greatest in Poland. They had their own coins. When they had the various pogroms all over the world, when they had the people, like in Spain, they had to become Christians who were Jews. Poland was the only country that allowed the Jew to practice his religion, and everybody else. It was the only democratic country, so to speak. Listen to me. Read books. The books are there.
We're going to take another brief time out and catch our breath, and then we'll continue on WABC.
Welcome to the
You are ludicrous. You mentioned books. I have in my bookcase right here at my left hand just a few of the many books. The Holocaust by Martin Gilbert, who was Winston Churchill's biographer, official biographer. The Holocaust. The Wiesenthal books. Inside the League. The Nuremberg trial transcript. 6 file drawers I have. You're ludicrous. You must be a Nazi, because there's no question that the Poles, the Ukrainians, the Lithuanians, the Latvians were the worst murderers in the world, the worst torturers in the world, and they deserve many generations of torture themselves until they become what we call Menschen, till they become human beings. You can't deny these testimonies. You can't deny the Nuremberg trial scripts, the